All right, so time for business, and Sandra Fenu has joined me. In the last few days, we've had mobile phone subscribers complain. I haven't really felt it.
I dodged it because I didn't buy MTN at all.
Okay.
I didn't buy credit at all.
But at least there's some good news for these people.
Yes, of course.
Okay, and we'll be bringing you that story a lot later about the refund of people who lost data or whose data dissipated.
Right, but you remember that there was a directive from the communications
exactly.
Ministry that data shouldn't expire, but MTN is saying you can't have it all. Yeah, that's what we're talking about in business. I'm Sandra and I'm here for business. Customers are not going to enjoy non-expiry dates on bundles on all packages, according to the CEO of MTN, Selom Adadivo. Some specific data bundles will expire after days, while others will not. He attributed this to differences in their special bundle offers. This is on the back of the announcement by the Communications Minister, Esla Owusu, directing all telecom companies to stop the expiring date of data.
So non-expiry applies to the Pulse 567 as well as 138. So for those two sets of data bundles, you have non-expiry. We also have different types of bundles that complete our portfolio, but not all our bundles affect that. But these two represent over 90% of our data bundle. You know, we're extremely apologetic to our customers for the last few days and what they've been experiencing. But we've been working extremely hard to make sure that these issues are resolved, and we should have resolution of the most critical issues tonight. So by tomorrow morning, you should see the volumes corrected and to reflect better the expectation from our customers. Now, what has informed the increase in pricing, the primary motivation for the changes was to stop the upfront recharge deduction. We are a company that prides ourselves in complying with the laws of our nation. And in as much as we had some preferences on how to implement the increase in communication services tax, our compliance comes first. And therefore, we're happy to implement this as a tariff increase. I think the key thing is to ensure that as agents of the government collecting taxes on behalf of the government, that we're able to do that in the most efficient way.
Guta says it will be meeting on Thursday to determine the reopening of locked-up shops. This was after some members of Guta actually closed shop belonging to foreigners at the Okanshi market yesterday. Today, the president was actually there to see what actually went on, and Charles Aite has been on the ground and he's been interacting with the president of Guta.
It has been a busy day for President Akufo-Addo as he met traders here at Okanshi in Accra. The main issue at hand has to do with the closures of shops belonging to foreign retailers. We do know that this has been a protracted issue for over 20 years now. Well, we've been joined by the president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, Dr. Joseph Obin, who received the president and, of course, shared the grievances that local traders do face. What exactly did the president tell, and, of course, their reaction to the president's statement? So thank you very much, Doc, for your time here with us. So first of all, you came, you met the president. What was the president's message?
Yeah, regarding the retailers, foreigners in the retail sector, the president was so clear. He said that the law is on our side. He's an astute lawyer. And for him to have open admission of that, because he won't talk just like that, means that what we have been saying over the years, that the law is so clear and that those who are mandated to enforce the law should do it. And that he said that he will make sure and talk to the trade minister to form a committee that will make sure that these laws are enforced. And that's what we are waiting. And it's not something that we are going to wait for a longer time, because now there is not the time for us to wait any longer. So we are going to make sure that the committee is set and then the implementation gets on.
Earlier on, we had Guta raise concerns about this particular committee. We do know that you have raised concerns regarding the constitution of this committee, saying that it did not really meet up to your expectations. Are you confident this time around?
Yeah, I don't think it will go along the same lines. Because and then what is the essence? Because the same old mistakes will play back. And so once we are going for another committee, I think the rules will change. We are just going for the modalities of enforcement. We are not going for any fanfare and all that. We are going straight for the business, because the President admits and recognizes the fact that the law is on our side. He is the key to the state. And for that admission and all that means that all that we have been saying, ECOWAS court itself have ruled in our favor. Any legal person knows that this shouldn't go the way it's going. That is straightforward, that the laws should be enforced. That's what everybody is talking about. And so we found it difficult to understand why the law itself is not being enforced. And the President has reiterated it. He said that the law is on our side. And for us, that's the most important thing, that the laws are going to be enforced by that open admission by the President.
But despite all these things, the President also made it clear to local traders that, I mean, the mode at which you're closing shops is arbitrary, and the fact that you should, I mean, calm down with this particular model. Do you accept that?
What else do you expect a president to say? A president is a matured person taking care of all of us, including the foreigners. And so he wouldn't sit down for lawlessness to break. Much as we are not also admitting that the law should be broken, the laws that goes in our favor. And so I think it's a only way for the president to say the way he said it. And we cannot argue about that. But then the fact that he has also admitted that the law is on our side means that he recognized that the laws should be enforced.
So what it means is that as we're expecting this committee to be formed, we're not going to be experiencing the closure of shops belonging to foreigners.
We are going to experience the enforcement of the law, which eventually will see the closure of shops.
The President was actually at Okanshi today, where he described the action by members of GUTA as unacceptable. He also said that a committee will be put in place to actually resolve the issues. In other news tonight, the Trade Union Congress is pushing for a dedicated bank for public sector workers. The union made a call at a post-budget review forum here in Accra. Fred Duho was there for Joy Business and has the rest of the story.
Speaking to Joy Business, Secretary General of the Trade Union Congress, Dr. Yao Ban, noted that current developments in the housing sector and the economy warrant the establishment of this bank for workers.
We have noted that many of the housing schemes have not worked. I mean, you bear witness to this. So we are proposing a bank which will dedicate its services to providing loans for workers to build houses wherever they want. And that is what we are calling Labor Bank. It is something we got from Japan. The Japanese have a bank called Labor Bank. In fact, they have a Japanese name for it, but you can translate it into Labor Bank. What they do is to provide loans at a concessionary rate for workers to buy houses, vehicles, cars, and other consumer items.
Addressing members of TUC at the meeting, Deputy Director in charge of research, Mary Akimu, maintained that the 2020 budget did not address issues of unemployment in the country.
There's been interventions in recruiting people into the Forestry Commission, for instance. We acknowledge government for that. And we think it's a way to help us address our climate change issues. We commend government for the NAPCO program, which has employed almost 100,000, I think 98 or so. All this said, we are making an ultimate claim that we still have employment creation as a challenge, not just to this administration, but to previous administration. And we are saying that the solution lies in the private sector.
Indigenous entrepreneurs that carry the bulk of the share of providing employment and income for the citizens of any particular society. So it is my opinion that any tax regime that wants to favor and promote industrialization and employment creation must first and foremost benefit indigenous small and medium entrepreneurs.
Fred Duho's report for Joy Business.
Welcome back to Business. A survey on price mechanism for cocoa by the Imani Ghana has revealed majority of cocoa farmers feel shortchanged by the Ghana Cocoa Board. According to respondents in the survey, the current price regime is woefully inadequate, falling short of the international market price. Cocoa Board few months ago increased the producer price by more than 8%, which took effect last October. Launching the report in Accra, research consultant at Imani Ghana, King Carl Duho, says the pricing committee is not transparent.
Cocoa Board in September this year increased the producer price of cocoa by 8% to 8,249 cedis per ton. Now, despite the fact that this survey did not capture this current review, most of the farmers interviewed still maintained that they feel cheated. The report also showed that Cocoa Board failed to meet the expectation of farmers and other stakeholders.
Now, about 5% of the farmers acknowledge they have been paid a producer price that is lower than the announced producer price. So the purchasing class that engage them, they indicated that sometimes they are paid lower than what is being announced. About 94% of the farmers are also not satisfied with the current producer price that have been determined. Now let's remember that this questionnaire was issued out in August before the current producer price was set.
However, chairman of the Central Regional Cocoa Farmers Association, Nana Kwesi Ofori, is of the view that Cocoa Board cannot be blamed alone.
But at times when you go, it will be a different. So the prices that will set up, it will automatically, you will not get, because approval have to come from cabinet. So the president can decide what the PPRC, who is being chaired now by the Minister for Food and Agriculture. Formerly, it was being chaired by the Finance Minister. And then at times it also comes from the word price, how things are.
The aim of the research, according to Imani, is to shed light on happenings in the cocoa industry.
In other news tonight, government has released some 40 million Ghana cedis to support efforts by the private sector in bridging the housing deficit in the country. The funds, which have been made available to some selected banks in the country, is expected to augment funding provided by private estate developer. Deputy Minister of Finance Charles Edubuahin disclosed it at the opening of the Ghana Affordable Housing Finance Forum in Accra on Monday, 2nd December. At the core of this is the cost of borrowing to purchase your dream house. And what are the rates and how are the rates on this loan? We want to discuss that. And my colleague Philip Nofuri is here as always. So let's get this straight. This amount is not going to estate developers, but for banks so that they can lend to individuals?
Yeah. So what we're learning is that some banks have been selected. I think earlier on this year, there was a National Mortgage and Housing Fund which was rolled out and was going to pool funds from many sources to give funds for affordable mortgages. So we have the 40 million there going to some banks, and I decided that, you know what, why don't I dig up some information on which banks in the country are giving mortgages from Bank of Ghana's data. So I have an infograph which I want to show to our viewers, and it shows that there are 23 banks in Ghana operating. From their data, that's Bank of Ghana's data, 8 banks had data on rates as a mortgage rate. And you see EcoBank, Fidelity, First Atlantic Bank, Omni Basic, Prudential Bank, Republic Bank, Stanbic Bank, and UBA. Then we also had 15 banks that didn't have data on rates. And I was thinking maybe perhaps either they didn't submit data to Bank of Ghana or they don't provide these loans at all. So that's the next infograph I want to show our listeners, the rate on it, how much exactly these banks are charging. Then you can see in there, the top EcoBank will charge you 22.9%. And this is data from Bank of Ghana. So it's from Bank of Ghana's annual percentage rates as at September 30th, 2019. You see Fidelity Bank in there, 30.5%. First Atlantic Bank, 21.5 to 25%. And at the bottom, you see United Bank for Africa, 18.7 to 1.7. Basically, rates are still high for mortgages.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, looking at what you've seen so far, the rates, what do you make of the rates? Still high?
Yes, still high, Sandra.
And how do we deal with this issue? Because we are getting these funds, and what exactly will this do to the banks? And will this, are they expecting that this money is going to help rates to come down?
Okay, so this is a good step, this 40 million, but it's not the end of the road. Mortgage financing is long-term. So you have to look for long-term money to lend to people who want to borrow, you and I. Most of the deposit profiles in this country are short-term. So if we take short-term deposits to give to long-term, there will be a mismatch, and we'll have challenges in the banking sector. So how then do we find long-term funds? You know, remember before Ghana Home Loans merged with First National Bank, and before they became GHL Bank even, they were doing very, very well when it came to mortgage lending. Anytime you talk about a mortgage, Ghana Home Loans comes to mind. So getting long-term funds is one key priority area. Most of these institutions go for it from beyond the shores of Ghana. Now, within the Ghanaian economy, how can we get long-term funds? Pension funds, life insurance funds are good. But we need to develop a structure where we can link the banks, the pension funds, and the life insurance funds to ensure that there's some cohesion in there.
Why are we not doing that, Philip?
I think over time, we focus more on the development of the banks on their own rather than focus on the development of the pension funds and life insurance funds, maybe side by side or even with that first, because they have long-term liabilities. Look at the monies we're putting away for our pension contributions. It won't be touched till we are 60. Imagine that pool of funds being channeled into mortgage development, to giving people mortgages. Or in fact, you can go for a mortgage and then they'll tie your pension funds to it. These are several things we can explore, but this is a start in there, and then we can see how best it will do.
I'm just thinking, you know, government has over time implemented certain strategies or instituted certain measures to be able to bring rates down. That's why government went into the affordable housing projects and all that. I'm just wondering, between the private sector and what government is doing, which one is likely to turn cheaper? And if you're talking about, okay, bringing rates down, is it to be driven by the private sector, or what government was doing is the right way to go? And not to go into the politics, but some of the projects are lying there and we are
Sandra, it's both. Government has to make some moves. Private sector has to make some moves. Getting rates down on interest on mortgages will take some time. We need a stable macro environment, you need regulatory reforms, etc. So as government is also working on doing their part, the private sector needs to also work. You remember last week we discussed high interest rates in the economy because of the governor's MPC speech. Whilst they work on those things from the private sector angle, government needs to come in through the Ministry of Works and Housing. And we need to see the national housing policy. Should we tweak some things? It was brought in 2015. Should we tweak something? Should we keep it? These discussions can go, but both of them, private and public sector, need to work together to ensure that you and I can go and borrow. Because right now, everybody's really
as it stands, it's really scary, and I want to ask you whether you buy a house at that rate.
No, I won't, because right now, I don't have my own.
All right, Philip Namfree, thanks so much for joining me. We've been discussing the mortgage and how you can actually get a lower rate. Government has implemented some intervention, but we want to see how trading fared today, starting with gold, which went for $60.87 a barrel after a minor 0.05 price loss a barrel in the commodity markets. And gold actually traded at $1,479.82 an ounce. The commodity news update is up next. I am Sandra Esinam Apen. You can always get more news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business.